Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Prelude to Infinity War. I'm your co-host, Tristan Riddell, from Nerd Nuptial, as well as Punch It, Writing and Star Trek. Today, joining me is...
Matthew Rushing from Aggressive Negotiations and Owl Post.
And Shawn Eastridge from Missing Frames and Your Wildest Dreams?
I mean, I know
my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Oh, man, thank you guys so much for joining me today. This is part of Filibuster's, Road to Infinity War, Prelude to Infinity War, pre-watch, marathon, whatever you want to call it. We're covering every single Marvel Cinematic Universe film, and we're doing it in order. And today, we are talking about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, boys, when we were all at the Nerd Party signing up for what movies to talk about, like Lee Hutchison, he developed a sign-up sheet. It was pretty much first come, first serve. It was like, what movies you want? We're splitting it up in two. Here we go. I jumped on Winter Soldier at the fastest possible moment. Like getting Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy in one. This has to be. I mean,
this is the best episode right here. I'm just gonna hands down say it.
Yeah.
It's got to be. It's got to be. I'm sorry, guys, who came before us. I mean, like, Shawn, you and I and John Mills, we started it with Iron Man and Incredible Hulk.
Kicked it
even
all
though
off.
we kicked it off, and Iron Man's great, and Incredible Hulk is not so great, but it has its good things.
Incredible Hulk is good. Is one of the better MCU films. I'm gonna back John Mills up on that one. So
okay, well, I'm going to. I think that's a discussion for another time.
That's a discussion that happened already. But we have to give Matt
where
some
were
credit
you,
here.
Matt? I was listening. I wasn't invited.
We have to give him some credit. This is Matt's first appearance, so he's got a lot of Marvel movies to express opinions on.
All right.
So congratulations to Matt for jumping on board for such a fantastic episode.
So then we had Iron Man 2 as well as Thor, and Rushing, I'm going to defend Thor, because I know you don't like Thor, but I like Thor.
You can't defend any of the Thors, really.
And then you had first Avengers, then Avengers, the first Avenger, then Avengers, then Iron Man 3 and Thor, The Dark World, and now us. Now, before we get into Winter Soldier, I kind of want to talk a little bit about Captain America as a whole, as a character. Now, Rushing, for people listening at home who can't see us right now, you are wearing a Captain America t-shirt. Rushing, how do you feel about Captain America as a comic book character, as a movie character? Chris Evans, weigh in.
Man, I love Captain America, and part of the reason is if anybody has listened to me on any podcast, you probably know that I love Superman. And in a lot of ways, Captain America is the Superman of the Marvel Universe. He's the morally upright character that everybody kind of looks to know what's right and what's wrong in the universe that he's in. And I think Chris Evans has done such a great job of portraying the character. One, he fills out the uniform wonderfully. Let's not lie. But two, I think that, as we've gone on successively throughout his appearances, I think he's become a better and better actor. There's just some really good moments, especially in Winter Soldier, where you can really see that Chris Evans has come into his own as an actor, and he portrays the part so well, and he's making you feel all that, Steve is feeling. And he's a really good character. And one of the things I love about him is that you can make a character morally upright, but you can still make him interesting. And I think that all of the Captain America films show that. And progressively, he's getting more and more jaded, which is interesting. Instead of more and more on the light side, he's become kind of more and more jaded as we go on. And this is a film that really catapults him into a whole new place, into a whole new state of mind. And I think it's really nice because the Marvel Universe at this point did such a great job of setting all of this up, and one of the things I think that the films did in general, and not so much the TV show, because we deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. in this, but it doesn't really have anything to do with that. But they just did such a great job of building all of this up and then this movie kind of tears it down. Like it
true.
burns it to the ground.
It really does. Like this movie really affects S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, to a great level. Now, Sean, first Avenger, the first Avenger that came out in 2011, yay or nay?
I talked about this in the Captain America episode, and it's funny. I enjoy it more each time I watch it. The first time I watched it, I wasn't a huge fan of it, and that was also partly because I wasn't really on board the MCU bandwagon yet. Once Avengers came out, all of a sudden I was like, I love all of it, and every time
you're a bandwagoner, is what you're saying.
I know exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't like things until I like
the populace does. I got it.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. But so First Avenger, every time I go back and rewatch it, I actually like it a little more, even though I don't think it's great. I like Rushing was saying, I'm a big Superman fan, and Captain America is basically Marvel's Superman, and he has a lot of the same ideals, the same like very defined moral compass, the inherent
Boy
sense
Scout.
of the inherent sense of right and wrong, which some could call boring, but if you do it right, it's very interesting, as these movies have proven. But First Avenger, I appreciate more, and a lot of it has to do with Chris Evans, because first of all, he has an amazing chest. Let's just get that like out there. We have to admire that. But I think his performance is so endearing and sincere, and I think Captain America, of all the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has had the most interesting arc. Just watching him go from that kind of ideal time period where there was a good and there was an evil. You could define those. It was very right and wrong. You know, we were fighting a very obvious evil. And to see him kind of out of his element and have to learn that, okay, there's now a gray area that I don't feel fully comfortable with, and finding his way there, as they do in Winter Soldier, the fact that they address it head on is kind of awesome. And I like you guys are saying, it's really one of the first Marvel movies post Avengers. I feel like Iron Man 3 kind of showed us that Marvel wasn't going to get backed into a corner creatively. Thor 2 showed us that Thor was still boring, and Captain America Winter Soldier showed us that they still had great stories to tell, and they really take it to an interesting place that's reflective of the current era we live in, but also very exciting for the character himself.
And I want to just say one thing, Tristan, and it's just this, 2 words, Haley Atwell, because I feel like her shadow looms large for Steve throughout the rest of this series. Like, just who she was to him, what she taught him as a person, what she helped make him, just in his internal character and everything. I think that's something that I've loved seeing is just how, even though she's gone, her shadow still looms large for that character and for his arc and what he's going through and all of that. So I think that's something that also they just cast that film well. And even for all of its like superhero-ness, it also felt really grounded. You know, all of the Cap films feel pretty grounded, and he feels like the one who's closest to us in a lot of ways, and who we'd want to be. So I think that's something that really stuck out to me in this rewatch, just how like she's still super important, even though she's not even really in this one, except in a picture on the wall.
Now, with me, like I loved all of your answers, guys, and with me, I think I'm right there with you, where I was on board with Chris Evans as Cap from the word go. I was just like, yeah, this works. This totally makes sense. I enjoyed the first part of Captain America, the First Avenger, but once we got to like the second and third act, I fell asleep.
It's
like,
basically a rush to get to the Avengers, essentially.
Yeah, like I totally was just like, okay, I am not on board. I still don't like the film. I've tried a couple of times and I don't like it. And I didn't really get on board with Captain America as a character until towards the very end of Avengers. It was, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but when it's the battle in New York and Tony says, like, comes down, looks at Cap and says, "Call it, Cap." And then Captain America just gets into his leadership mode, and everybody listens to him, and he tells everybody what to do, and they save the day. I was just like, right. I'm on board with this guy. I would follow this guy. This guy is now an amazing character.
And then they followed it up with that great moment with the cops where the cops are like, why should we listen to you? And then he kills a couple aliens and they're like, all right.
Exactly. That would be me. And so I was just like, okay, this guy deserves a better movie than the first Avenger. And boom, we got it in Winter Soldier. Okay, so Captain America, the Winter Soldier came out in 2014, Russo brothers. I only knew the Russo brothers from a couple of episodes from Arrested Development. That's it. Yeah. And so when I heard that they were going to be directing a major motion picture in the MCU in phase 2, I was like, what? Come on, guys. Like really? But I was blown away. So, okay. So Shawn, you walk out of the theater, you saw Winter Soldier, you walk out of the theater, first impression.
I thought it was one of the best things ever. And I was, Avengers, I absolutely love the Avengers. That was really the moment where it all worked for me. It all clicked. And beyond just loving it as a superhero movie, I was like, I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So I was on board from that point on. Iron Man 3, I thought was really fun and really interesting. And I loved how Shane Black subverted a lot of expectations. It was cool because, like I said, it felt like creatively Marvel was saying, don't put us in a box. We're going to do some new stuff. Thor 2, I was even willing to give a pass. I loved the Avengers that much. I was willing to say, I don't like this that much, but whatever. I love the Avengers. But Winter Soldier, I was kind of, ambivalent towards. I was excited in the same general sense, and it completely blew me away. I had the same feeling of elation I did walking out of the Avengers. And a lot of it is because Iron Man 3 deals with Tony Stark's character. Thor 2 is off in its own weird, dull world. But Winter Soldier feels like the first kind of
it's a dark world.
The dark world?
Yeah, it feels like a really dark world.
It was a very dark world. It was a very dark movie-going experience.
They also call it London, I think, is the dark world. Because it's,
sorry, Lee. We're just kidding.
But Winter Soldier feels like the first time where they took the story forward. But not just took it forward, they made it really interesting because you have this whole dynamic of S.H.I.E.L.D., and really the only time we see S.H.I.E.L.D. is in like the Avengers and the Captain America movies. They get little cameos elsewhere, but they take a lot of prevalence in these movies. And you got this very interesting dynamic where it's kind of like Rushing was saying, a lot of what they built up in the previous films, Winter Soldier really tears it down. And that was exciting. And beyond that, to see Captain America in a world where he is constantly challenged, where he's on the run, where this, goody two-shoes guy is now the not the vigilante, but the criminal. He's out on the run. That was really cool. And I loved it. And beyond just loving that, like you said, the Russos, I was like, who are the Russo brothers? Do I care? Not really. And then they literally, this is their first big blockbuster. I think they'd done You, Me, and Dupree, and did they do Marley and Me? I feel like even if they didn't, that's like the type of movie they were doing. So to have these guys come in, had directed kind of modest comedy shows, and make one of the most badass action movies ever, that was like from the get-go, that scene where he's infiltrating the ship and he kicks a guy off the boat. I remember immediately, I was like, oh my God, all right, let's do it. Let's beat up everybody. This is fantastic. The action was great.
I would have loved to, like you mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D. a moment ago, I would have loved to have seen the executive producers and showrunners of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, read the script for Winter Soldier for the first time and just go, I'm sorry, you want to do what?
Yeah.
You know that scene from Key and Peele where he's the substitute teacher and he's got the clipboard and he's like, son of a... That's exactly what happened in the writer's
room. Is this what you want to do, AA Ron?
But it's funny because the show became more interesting as a result of them making S.H.I.E.L.D. Defunct and making it evil and Hydra. The agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. benefited from that eventually. But yeah, the action's incredible, but more than that, I love, or maybe just as much, I really do love the action, but I loved the character moments and I loved the small beats as much as I loved the action.
Now, Rushing, what worked for you? What do you think clicked in the Winter Soldier? Because, it's well written, it's well acted, but there's got to be something there specifically that you're just like, you know what? This is one of the best things of the movie. Is it, I know what it is for me, but for you, was it Chris Evans' performance? Was it the writing? Was it the direction? Was it the guest stars? Was it, was it the genre feel to it? What worked the most for you with this film?
Yeah, I think the thing that elevates for me Captain America. I mean, for me, I went to look at my Letterboxd list I have of like favorite superhero movies, and it doesn't matter what who made it. It's a list I've compiled, and it's number 4 on the list. And what elevates the movie for me is the fact that it's taking everything that's been happening in the Marvel Universe really seriously. Like, it takes all of it very seriously, and that you could remove any superhero elements from this movie, and it would still be a fantastic movie. Because it's a 70s spy thriller. Yeah. That's what's going on, and everything in it, again, you could remove the fact that he's got superpowers, and it would still be an incredible film. It could be just like a more sci-fi type movie, than a superhero movie. And you could even, dumb it down and could with some of the sci-fi elements, and it could still just be a great. I mean, again, there's so much of this that's happening. It could still be a great movie, and I think part of that, you mentioned earlier, Shawn, this is a movie that also gave us something to look at and to think about beyond just the comic book genre. It was something that we have to think about now: privacy issues. When they're talking about, you can the world's an open book and you can read anybody, and part of the predictive algorithm is people's Facebooks being used. Wow, that sounds even more familiar now than I thought it did then. So like, what I love about it is that the movie has these great archetypal themes that's going to make it relevant today, yesterday, and forever, because it's not just tied into one thing. It's really, and that's what I think makes for the best kind of comic book movie, and in general, like the best genre type movie are the ones that can really tap into something that keeps them relevant for a long time. And on top of that, I mean, I think you called it out too, Shawn, and I got to give you huge props for that. It is those characters' moments. It's the small moments. I don't know if I would have thought of Cap and Black Widow together in a film.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
It's like the best thing in the movie. Like, I just want a series of movies with Cap and Black Widow doing stuff together, because they're the camaraderie that they have back and forth. I mean, you can tell that those two have chemistry in real life as people. They're friends, and it plays off perfectly in this film. So, I mean, this movie does everything right, honestly. I can't think of anything personally that I would be like, if you change that, it'd be better. And no, this movie is practically perfect in every way. It's like the Mary Poppins of Marvel.
Rushing, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because that was going to be my answer as to what really elevates the Winter Soldier above the rest, or above what came before, was the pairing of Cap and Black Widow. It's something I never would have thought of that really should have happened or would have happened, like after we saw Avengers or even Iron Man 2 or anything like that. It really kind of came out of nowhere, but then it makes perfect sense after you see it. You're just like, these people have such great chemistry, and I think that, honestly, that is why this movie is one of my favorite MCU films, is because of those two people together. And I do believe that we need better and more female representation in the MCU, but I don't think that a Black Widow movie is what we need, and I definitely don't want it, but I definitely want more of her in the forefront with Captain America. Like, if we ever did get another Captain America film, which I'm not sure if we're going to, I would want to see the two of them together. And I know we are getting a Black Widow film, or Red Sparrow 2, whatever you want to call it. But it's, I think it's, so, okay, like, chips on the table. I think this is a great film for the Marvel Universe. Like, I feel like all Marvel films are kind of graded on a curve. I don't think I'm really saying anything revolutionary right now, but I know this is all kind of like an MCU love fest. But it's just, I feel like there's certain things with Winter Soldier. Like, this is definitely one of the best in the MCU. I think it's, it's well directed, well edited, has great chemistry, great story elements. But there's a certain times when the acting's just kind of like, There's certain times when it gets a little cheesy, it gets a little wooden. And so that's why I'm saying, like, this is a fantastic film and a great film for the MCU. Do you guys disagree with me? Do you think even if it was outside of the MCU, this would be, a great film?
I mean, I think it's one of the best action films I've ever seen. And I'm biased, of course. I'm an MCU fan, but at the same time, I'm also just like in love with this movie. And a lot of it is just like, it's such a smart movie. I mean, the action is great. It's got a lot of great superhero stuff. But I mean, like, this movie opens with that amazing, like, on your left scene where you have this great bonding moment with him and Sam meeting for the first time. The list of all the stuff he needs to learn. But then you have these beautiful small moments. Like Haley Atwell, like Matt said, she's not in this movie a lot, but she has one amazing scene that I feel like if this was just a generic Marvel movie or a generic action movie, that's one of the first things you'd cut out. But the fact that they included it, the scene where he goes and visits her, and you have that moment where you not only call back to their relationship, but you see just how heartbreaking it is. This guy, the woman that he's in love with, he lost a lifetime with her, and he's completely out of his element. He doesn't have any friends. When he rediscovers his best friend is trying to kill him. And there's so much about this movie that beyond the action, beyond the superhero stuff, really works for me. It was perfect that all the NSA stuff was happening when this movie was released, because that added that level of subtext to it. But for me, I mean, the stuff that makes this work, like I said, the action is fun and it's great, and that's what we go to see these movies for. But what makes this special and makes this a great movie outside of the MCU are things like that, and those quieter moments where you have these relationships developing and these friendships where it's just two people talking.
No, rushing. Same question. Go ahead and bring us home on Winter Soldier, because we got to move on to Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm definitely not a person who is afraid of being critical of Marvel whatsoever. I'm not afraid, honestly, to be critical of any franchise I love. I'm a huge Star Wars fan and do aggressive negotiations, but I'm willing to be critical when I feel like it's needed. I think that with the Winter Soldier, the thing that puts it above every other Marvel movie is that it fits so well in the universe that's been created for it. It takes everything in that universe seriously. It then moves the story forward for that universe in a way that feels completely on its own here. Like, one of the best things about this film, I can pop it in and watch it any time, and it feels like a complete story. I think that's what's great about it. I don't feel like I have to have seen the first Captain America, honestly.
No, you really
or
don't.
really any of the other MCU movies, because it does such a great job of making sure that I understand everything that's happening in the movie. And I feel like that the emotion and the characterization is so good. Again, I understand everything that's going on. And it's just, I think, Shawn, you were talking about, like, it just, I'm one of those people. The action in this movie is fantastic. When he's fighting the leaper at the beginning. That is just an amazing scene.
The
they're
elevator
just beating
scene,
the crap out of each other. Yeah. But the emotion of him and Bucky at the end, where they're fighting each other, he's like, I don't want to fight you, and all of that. I think it comes down to real emotion that you can feel on screen with these characters in every single place, whether it's that fight or whether it's, I felt for Black Widow when she thought she lost, what's his face? Come
Fury.
on. Fury, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember. But that, I feel like that's a great moment, because you feel for these characters, but you also have this wonderful thing of these two, characters coming together in this movie that are kind of polar opposites, creating this interesting, brother-sister thing going on, but with some other tensions as well. It's just, it's so well done, and it's so nuanced, and there's a lot of depth in each and every, I think, frame of this film, that it makes it something special, even for the MCU, and it's, for me, what makes it the best film in the MCU.
Now, okay, 2014, same year as Winter Soldier, we get Guardians of the Galaxy, 2 MCU films in 1 year. How quaint. Now, with this was directed and written in part by James Gunn, and this was, I think, this one had a lot of hype around it. This Guardians of the Galaxy was what was seen as a huge risk for the MCU. This was, nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy was unless you were a hardcore Marvel fan. Like this wasn't even B Squad or C Squad. This was the D-list celebrities of the MCU. And it wasn't just going to be a comic book film. It was going to be a science fiction comedy. I mean, that's at this time, this was unheard of. This was well before Thor Ragnarok came out,
and it was disconnected completely. It wasn't like, oh, and Captain America will be in it or Iron Man will be in it. It was basically like they were soft rebooting a whole new mini franchise within the MCU.
Right. The only thing that was connected was the Infinity Stones and Thanos. Like it didn't take place in New York. There was no Avengers. There wasn't any kind of connection to the gods or anything like that. It was just Thanos and the Infinity Stones. And with this one, I remember this was probably one of the greatest trailers of the year that came out.
Yes. I was so excited. I mean, what was so great about it is that it embraced the weird. And I was on board from like the second I saw the trailer. I was like, this is going to be great. And I remember people were like, what is this? Like, this looks so stupid. And I'm like, no. Get on its wavelength. I get this. This is going to be crazy. And that's what I want. I want crazy in this universe. We've been kind of following a similar pattern with each of these movies. This feels like a good opportunity to go a little bonkers. So the trailer totally, it was like speaking directly to my soul.
I think one of the things that this movie is one of those where it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it is that. So that's, I think, its greatest strength, is that it knows that it wants to be an all-out comedy with a little bit of heart, and I think, again, the thing that elevates it from being what it could have been, which is mediocre, is that they created a film that they then cast well. Because it's the cast that brings this through for me, big time. Because without them, I think it would have really suffered. But I mean, heck, doing Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, he's the best part of the movie, and he's a CGI character. But he's the one I feel for the most in the movie. It's insane. And
seriously,
that's because of
listen
him.
to this cast list: Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Lee Pace, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, Djimon Hounsou, John C. Reilly, Glenn Close, and Benicio del Toro. That's insanity.
Yeah, that's
brilliant. Just an amazing cast.
Any movie with John C. Reilly has a seal of approval automatically. Regardless of if it's good or not, it still gets some sort of seal of approval.
And how he delivered some of those lines straight-faced, I don't understand.
That's technically murder.
He said
which is
he's
also
an a-hole,
illegal.
But he's pretty sure he's not 100%. Yeah, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And this was also the film that skyrocketed Chris Pratt's career, where he wasn't just the guy, the goofy, pudgy guy on Parks and Rec who did a few side films here and there. This is what made him a leading man and action hero.
He's a movie star
and then
now.
also, and like he's a movie star now, and he's got like an 8-pack. It's insane. Because I remember when he first tweeted or Instagrammed that picture of himself working out and with his shirt off, I was like, that can't be the same Chris Pratt that I know from Parks and Rec. That can't be Andy Dwyer. That's not possible. But shirtless Chris Pratt aside, yes, this movie, Rushing, you're absolutely 100% right. This movie knew what it wanted to be and is it. It aimed for a target and it hit that target. And the trailer, got me in. I was just like, okay, I'll totally do this one. But for some reason, I wasn't rushing to the theater for this one. Like I really only see Avengers films or Captain America films in the theater. Now I broke that rule with Phase 3 pretty hard. But with this specific film, like I saw this on video, I rented it, and I enjoyed it a whole lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah,
now, Shawn, what did you? After you saw this for the first time, like, did this live up to your expectations?
Yeah, this is going to be rough because Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like, is kind of considered undisputedly like, oh, it's my favorite, it's the best one. I think it's decent. It's not one of my favorites. And part of it is because I wanted it to be more bonkers. It felt a little held back by a need to kind of tell its story and hit a lot of familiar plot points. There's the villain who wants to take over the world or the universe. There's this, there's that. And the issue for me is there are some good jokes. It's funny. Some of them don't hit their mark, but I wanted weirder, and it felt like it was playing things a little safe for me. I think the cast is great. Chris Pratt is clearly trying to live up to the rest of the Chris's in this universe with his amazing shirtless scene, but I wanted a little more weird, and I feel like the thing that people really latch onto with Guardians that makes them think it's way better than it is are the zany characters, kind of the sense of humor of it, and the soundtrack. I think it's coats of paint on like a decent movie that make it look way better than it actually is. So I liked it. I will say every time I've watched it, I've enjoyed it a little less, and I might be in the small camp of people who likes Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 more than this one. And part of that is because, oh wow, okay, so here we go.
Yes.
So part of it is the emotional connection that I felt this one was lacking. This has a little bit of a emotional through line. There's a little bit with Rocket. There's a little bit of scenes with Star-Lord and his mom that kind of give it an emotional core, but those don't feel necessarily connected to the movie. They feel a little arbitrary to me, as if James Gunn wrote a draft and then was like, oh crap, I've got to go back in and put in some emotional moments, otherwise it's all like jokes and craziness. But it doesn't engage until later on in the movie. You have a zany cast of characters that they all have their own motivations, but none of them seem that connected to the plot, and none of them seem that interested in what they're doing. So for me, it made it hard to engage, and I had a fun time, but it's one of those that it doesn't necessarily hold up for me on repeat viewings.
Yeah,
I'm like with you, where I like Volume 2 more than the first one, and when I said that I liked it more than I thought I would, it still doesn't mean I think it was the end all be all. I think it's like number 11 on my list,
right?
And like I like Iron Man 3 more, Avengers more, and Volume 2 more.
I really think I think it's the soundtrack. I'm not even kidding. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're like, they have soundtracks, and Chris Pratt said, hey, they got my dick message, and that's funny. You know, it's they go to places you don't expect from this kind of movie, and that gives them a pass for what's ultimately kind of like, oh, it's decent.
Now, Rushing, how about you? Like, where does this fall on your list? Are they like, did this live up to the hype for you, or is it straight in the middle? You know, where is this?
You know, it's a great question, and it is a hard thing, because I think that this is a movie that hit a lot of people's funny bones. You know, they really just thought it was like the best thing since individually wrapped slices of cheese. You know, and I absolutely agree with you, Shawn, that the thing about this movie is this: it is a bunch of cliches and tropes with fun characters that they do a great job of making you care about, which is what makes this movie work. Because I end up caring about the characters, but when I actually think about the movie as a movie and the story it's telling and everything, there's nothing original here. It's just like, I mean, the villain, I don't know anything about the villain. I still don't know what the Kree or the Xandarians, I don't know what all that's about. Like, there's when it comes to like the actual story, there's nothing for me to like truly care about, because I don't know any. I mean, there's no real good world building that happens here.
There's nothing to latch on to, really.
No, but again, you're
kind of right.
They create characters that I love, and so I kind of just keep following them around. And I think too, Zoe Saldana is not very good in this movie.
No, she's not.
She's awful.
That was one of the first things I hated. I didn't want to admit it to myself when I walked out of the movie, because I love her so much. But that was one of the first things. And you're going to hate me. Bradley Cooper felt a little off to me, too. And
really?
I love Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, me too.
But there were times where it felt like, and especially, I noticed it in one of the movie's best scenes, the We Are Groot scene. But when he's crying, he's kind of, it's almost like he didn't know how seriously to take it. Like, he's kind of like, Groot, no, you're gonna die. And it was like, is he like hamming it up? There are times where it's hard to, the sincerity of the character is there in the script and the way James Gunn directs it and the way the animation is made. Like, Rocket seems sincere, but it's almost as if Bradley Cooper didn't quite grasp the character. So at times he plays things comical that feel like they're supposed to be serious. And speaking of weird voices, I love Karen Gillan, but why does she talk like a changeling from Attack of the Clones in this movie? It's so bizarre.
Yeah, there's a few character choices and actor choices that kind of went left when it should have gone right. And it's hard to argue with what you said about Bradley Cooper and Rocket, which I feel like he found that balance in the second one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was that trial and error in the first one. But he gives one of my favorite lines in the entire movie is when they're done with the Benicio del Toro scene and they have the MacGuffin. And then like Chris Pratt walks out with it, and then Rocket sees him and he goes, "Why do you still have it?"
I also enjoy when he's like, "You've got me so angry, I'm kicking grass." I can see some of what you're saying in that, because and I think part of it for me and where I made my peace with just Rocket there. Is that he is a character whose always first inclination is to joke because he's covering up the fact that he feels.
Yeah.
And so that's why you get that unevenness. But I bought that more as like the character, and so it didn't bother me as much when I had that happen. I actually kind of enjoyed it then. But I can see what you're saying, like how if it could not work for you, and I that makes sense. So.
I was going to say, and you got to give James Gunn credit, because he basically took, like Tristan said, a D list of characters. Nobody cared about the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he had to make it work. And there was a lot of groundwork to do here. And the movie does suffer from kind of the same pratfalls as any origin story movie, where it's like it's taking its time. You have 5 or 6 characters to introduce, all these different things. And in the meantime, you also have to deal with the fact that nobody knows who they are. So you have to kind of keep it grounded a little bit. And like Rushing said, I think what really keeps this movie's head above the water is the cast of characters. And that really does. You kind of are like, I don't really care about what's going on, but I do like these guys, and I want to stick with them through thick and thin.
Yeah, I think honestly that is what this film is. It's the cast of characters, because I don't know Lee Pace's bad guy's name.
It's Ronin.
Ronin?
Right?
Ronin? Yeah.
The only reason I remember that is because of Ronin Warriors, which I don't know if anyone else watched, but that's literally.
Yeah, like that's the thing, is that like so much of the plot and the bad guys and the MacGuffin is forgettable. But you know that you had a good time because the characters worked so well together. It was truly an ensemble piece, and the chemistry was there. And then once it was over, you're like, okay, this is a movie where I do want a sequel. Like, I want to see them excel and move forward, because there's certain times when you watch a movie and it's clearly setting up for a sequel, and you're like, that's never going to happen, or we don't need that. That's not going to work. This one was, okay, this was a good film, not as great as what they promised, but we see a lot of potential for the future. And I was so happy when Volume 2 came out, even though we're not here to talk about Volume 2. I laughed out loud way harder with Volume 2 than I did with Volume 1.
Too.
Yeah.
And I think, but I don't think it would have happened if we didn't have the groundwork of the first one in 2014.
Sure.
Well, and I think that just for the reason is that the second one has a little bit more meat to the story, and it makes you care. I mean, you already care about the characters, so you kind of care what they're all going through, and it does a better job of explaining itself,
Plus,
and
more Michael Rooker is never a bad thing.
Yeah. So I think, but this one, it does just have some issues, and it's interesting to me as to why people get so are kind of so in love with it, because it's I can't seem to figure that out. And is it just because they had a good. It's kind of like when you have some cotton candy, you know, and it's like it's so good, but then it's gone. It's like I guess maybe people enjoy that feeling more than, you know, like what we were talking about with Winter Soldier, where it's like that movie sticks with you and it stays with you and it makes you think about things, and it's like it really has something to say about the world and everything. Like this movie doesn't do any of that, but people seem to think that it's the best things they've ever seen, and I
think about Phase
don't
2
get
though.
That.
Like Rushing, think about Phase 2. Think about the tone in Iron Man 3. Think about the tone in Thor 2. Think about Winter Soldier, of everything that we just talked about. Think about Age of Ultron.
In Thor 3? I mean, Thor 2, other than like boredom?
Other than monotone?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like it was dark, it was monochromatic, it was downtrodden, you know, like it was
no
just
visual identity, bland.
Yeah, it was dour, and the Winter Soldier was, you know, like it had something to say and it was a great movie, but it still had a very sardonic view of the world. And Age of Ultron was just a mess, and just you know, like cities were being destroyed, and like people didn't like the Avengers, like in universe people. And then you have Guardians of the Galaxy, pure cotton candy, lots of colors, lots of joy, and I think it's something that we desperately needed in Phase 2.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like it's like Iron Man 3. It's a bold, at the very least, it is its own thing. It feels like a creative expression. The shortcomings aside, James Gunn clearly made a movie that he wanted to make, and it has a personality. And people want colorful and fun. Like I said, you can throw a fun pop song into a movie, and it throws everybody off because nobody expected a Marvel movie to open with Chris Pratt dancing to "Come and Get Your Love" during the opening credits. It basically subverts expectations. It's just like it to me. I can see it's tricking the audience into like, oh, this is so clever, and it's like, well, it's fun, yes, but people want that. I mean, that's the thing. It's like with Winter Soldier, it's very serious, very intense. There's fighting, there's violence, and Guardians of the Galaxy comes along and it has fart jokes, or I don't know if there's fart jokes in it, but you get what I'm saying. It's a little looser. Yeah. It's a little.
It has
more
a talking
colorful.
Raccoon and I am Groot.
It's. I think people were kind of going into it not expecting it to be good. Nobody, I mean, the general audience is going into a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy like, what is this? Who cares? And then they come out of it like, I had so much fun and I love Groot and all that. You know, it caught people by surprise. So I think that was what kind of made them so enamored with it, is that sheer lack of expectation for Guardians of the Galaxy. To be fair, nobody thought this movie was going to be very good in the first place. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that might be it too. You know, and I think you really hit on something there. When you go into a movie and you have no expectations, all it can do is go up, right? I mean, so I think,
I don't know about that one, but
well, in a sense that, like, you know, if you start with absolutely no expectations, which I kind of usually think of for myself, like, this movie could be like, you know, but I'll give it a chance. This movie then does that thing where it takes what it gives you and it makes you feel like it's better than it is, and that's a good trick to be able to pull. You know, James Gunn, I think, really pulls out all the stops to make this a better movie than it actually is. When you start to sit down and think about story elements and maybe some of the acting choices and all that kind of stuff. And that's good filmmaking. That really is good filmmaking. And so I think they really hit on something. And part of it, I think the other thing is they just let him do whatever the hell he wanted. I mean, and that's really smart because James Gunn proved that he knew what he was doing. And it was a place where the studio, it's kind of where I wish the studio had just kind of went with, you know, Edgar Wright with Ant-Man, you know, just let him do his thing. You know, you did that with James Gunn and look what you got, you know. So, and I just kind of wish studios would do that in general with stuff being so meddling, but they didn't do that with him here. They trusted him to pull this off, and, you know, he makes you care about a walking tree that only says 3 words, 4 at the end, and, you know, and a walking raccoon. So I mean, that's a good.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
Tristan, we've just spent the past 30 minutes beating up on one of the most beloved Marvel movies of all time. How are we going to recover from this? Bring us back.
I don't think we beat up on it too bad. I think we were very realistic with it. I think even though it is beloved, we gave it its props. We talked about why it worked, and we just talked about where it didn't quite work with us personally. I think this was a very even conversation, so everybody can save their hate mail and save their letters. But what I want to know from you, gentlemen, is as we close, I want to know, where does Guardians of the Galaxy land on your MCU lists, and where does Winter Soldier land on your MCU list? Shawn, where is Guardians of the Galaxy?
So Guardians of the Galaxy, it's firmly in the middle, like with with the ones that I like but don't love, like kind of right around it's Spider-Man: Homecoming, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, all these ones. It's decent. It doesn't blow me away, but like we've said, I admire its creativity, what it tried to do. Winter Soldier, on the other hand, is like number 2 for me. Avengers is just like, it's my first love, and I adore it so much, and it caught me so by surprise. Like Matt was saying, you go into a movie with almost no expectations, and then you come out of it like, what just happened? That was the best thing ever. That was my experience with the Avengers. And Winter Soldier was the first post-Avengers movie to really live up to what I enjoyed about that one. I love the emotion of it. I love the action. There are few action sequences as cool as that elevator scene with him and like the 5,000 guards that he takes out. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, rushing.
I mean, Captain America is number 1 on the list for me. It to me, again, I feel like it's a movie that has very little, if any, faults. But that's just for me. It's one of those movies that I absolutely 100% love pretty much everything they do, and I love watching it. Rewatching it for this, we had a friend over, and I was just like, man, this movie is so good, so good. For out of the 18 Marvel movies that we've gotten so far, Guardians of the Galaxy is number 10 for me, so that's right there in the middle. It's a good movie, and it definitely I think belongs in the top 10 at this moment. Then you start to get into your Doctor Stranges and Thor Ragnaroks and Age of Ultron, Spider-Man: Homecomings, all that stuff. It's like that's the bottom of the list, but it's good, and it gave me characters that in the MCU I cared about. So yeah, it's a good. I mean, again, I think we got the when you think of the episodes back to back, like the movies you get to watch back to back. It's a great combo of Winter Soldier and then Guardians of the Galaxy, because it's the two extremes really almost of tone, but it made for a nice pairing, and I think best episodes here. Well, I don't know, Tristan, what about you? What do you think?
I'm kind of with you guys, where like Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, is very much in the middle. I think it's number 11 on my MCU list, and Winter Soldier is number 1 on my MCU list. Number 2, if it's on the overall Marvel list, only beat out by Logan. But that's not MCU. But yeah, like it's Volume 2 is definitely higher than Volume 1, and actually I think Volume 2 is actually higher than Avengers for me. But the thing is, I haven't watched Avengers in a long time, so I need to rewatch it. I'm actually before Infinity War, I'm going to watch Avengers, then Winter Soldier, then Civil War, and
no Age of Ultron.
No, I'm skipping Age of Ultron, and then we're going to go see Infinity War. But yes, okay. I think so too. Now, all right, thank you guys so much.
As we hand this off to the Age of Ultron group.
As we hand this off to the Age of Ultron group, yeah, thank you guys so much for doing the filibuster and talking your hearts out. Rushing real quick, where can we find you elsewhere on the network as well as outside of the network?
Yeah, you can find me here on the network doing Aggressive Negotiations. John Mills talking all about Star Wars. It's our first best love. So make sure you check that out. You can also find me on Outpost with Dre Kaufman talking about one of my other heartfelt loves, Harry Potter. We're going through each and every chapter of that series, so it's a lot of fun. You can find me on Twitter, MattRushing02, Instagram under the same name, and I'm over on the Trek FM network talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine with Chris Jones on the Orb. And then last but not least, you can find me on the 602 Club doing all things geeky.
Shawn, how about you?
So I am on the Nerd Party Network on the podcast Missing Frames, which I host. We watch all the movies we probably definitely should have seen by this point in our lives. So you can find me there. You can also find me on Twitter at @YayShawnDoorman. And you can find me pining after Chris Pine, who has nothing to do with these movies. I don't know why I said that. But after pretty much every Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Rock, all of them to me are wonderful. So that's it.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at The Insane Robin, and you can also find me on the network with a show called Nerd Nuptial, which is a geek podcast that I host with my wife. And you can also find me on Punch It, Writing in Star Trek, where Charlene Schmidt and myself talk about the writing in Star Trek as well as doing some of our own. And make sure to go to thenerdparty.com for all of these shows and more, and all of our back catalog episodes. And make sure to listen to all of the filibusters about the Prelude to Infinity War. Next up is going to be Avengers Age of Ultron and then Ant-Man. So please make sure to subscribe to this channel, subscribe to this show, keep coming back to thenerdparty.com for more. And, as you listen, make sure to come back and get your love.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.